towards. So divine taste is the thought texture that
Right.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
like that's what they're striving for is the divine taste because the tasting is going on and they're participating in that act now. They're divinely tasting.
No,
Oh,
no, no
and
divinely tasting. However, you were onto something at first. You absolutely were
why
snowballing.
not divinely tasting?
Divinely tasting, it just doesn't happen. It's not even that it's wrong. It's just like I don't. It isn't something which happens. Because you're not divinely tasting. The divine taste is something which you can't even really fully ever reach. It's like the hypothetical, like you were talking about
I'm
how
not
like
saying. I'm saying out. I'm saying as a there is our version of the divine taste, which is what it looks like from our perspective, which is us reaching up to get a taste. But what we're participating in is a much greater act, which is God eating itself, which is a divine taste, which we're seeing from our perspective.
let me ponder upon that. That's very interesting. That's correct only in the case in which you view the divine taste as something bigger than its framework self, which is something which I've debated
That
upon since it was created.
the reason why I do this is because I mean it's compared to will to taste, which it's like it is a metaphysical principle that you're labeling it as. So I'm just imagining these as metaphysical principles which we are participating in, and I think that's going to help people understand it. And it can still be used as the framework, of course.
Let me ponder upon this some more.
To state it, it would be to state it simply is that God has the divine taste, and that looks like us, having the will to taste. The interconnected concepts.
You see what I posted in the chat? Hear me?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, that relates to what you were saying before, where it's like, what we are is what we're meeting in the middle of that eating process.
Yeah, the caught between the two poles. I thought the exact same thing as soon as I typed it out. Is we are caught in the middle of both striving. That is the eating. Hold on,
Hmm.
I need to think about this more because I do feel like there is some merit in having a concept which is only a framework version of God, and basically, what if we white hole black hole it? What if we gave it a name? What if you looked at it like this? Um, will to taste as black hole is God reaching for us. It is the one striving for the many. The will to taste is both us willing to taste and God willing to taste us. Because and now here's the thing, and I want to hear what you have to say about this, is that I think there's some merit to having a framework God, a version of God which exists only within the minds of people. Um, and that's what I currently see. Um, that is what I currently see divine taste serving as. Is a taste which only exists as the ideal of perfection and doesn't exist metaphysically outside of the ideal for perfection. Um, other than the fact that through understanding true God, you can better understand the ideal of perfection.
The divine taste is the label for when one finds or tastes God,
Not
right?
necessarily taste God.
It's
Strives for
for what
perfection is the closest terminology. It's like
okay, okay, is it you're saying that's what it does to a person is it makes them strive for perfection.
it's like will to taste and the other one are so fucking tied into each other. Will to taste and divine taste are like so similar. They're so intertwined. Um, what was the last question you had?
Something about the divine taste.
You betcha. Um, let me think about it for a second.
Taste, I guess. Um, say that again.
The divine taste is the good.
It's the infinite in relation to us,
No, it's the good. Like literally, it's just the good. It's not anything. It's just the good. Like it's
which
just
I think is
the ideal of
that's
perfection.
kind of what I
And
mean.
okay, and
But the
here's what
ideal of perfection cannot exist if there's no one to strive for that ideal. Without us, it's just not. It's just nothing. With us, there's good. That wholeness becomes good.
um I don't know. I don't even know. I don't like. Sure, I guess, but that doesn't fit into what I mean in this current moment by divine taste. However, that does fit under the umbrella of what divine taste means. So you are correct. Um, there's something I'm trying to say with it. It's like here's what I'm trying to say with it is that it's framework God. It literally like it literally doesn't. This version of God literally doesn't exist outside of our brains. Like this isn't positing any metaphysics.
It's what the ego just it's understanding of God.
You basically, yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's understanding of God. Yeah, the divine taste is understanding of God, but yet again, it's more complicated than that because it really has nothing to do with God at all. Really, take God out of the equation entirely. It's just to strive for perfection or strive for the good, and it's just that you can't get out of the way of the fact that God is the greatest good, and so God will come up. But it's not because God is this. God isn't this. This is a separate thing. But it's just that God is the best answer for this. If you see what I'm saying, it's like God isn't real to this thing. The framework God, the simply framework God, you don't you there is no metaphysical God. It's just that the metaphysical God. God damn it! It's so fucking stupid, complicated trying to put in language. The framework God is just the ideal of perfection. So let's compare it to will to power or whatever the equivalent is. The Ubermensch, right? So like the Ubermensch is also the same thing here, right? The Ubermensch is striving for the best human, right? The best. It's just striving for the best. You should always be striving for better. This is the same thing. This is the Ubermensch equivalent, right? The divine taste is. So this is saying the same thing, which is that you should be striving for the Ubermensch, but not just the Ubermensch. You should be striving for complete oneness. You should be striving beyond the Ubermensch. You should be striving for God. But it has nothing to do with God. It is only about striving for perfection, and it's just that God happens to be perfection.
So is divine taste labeled as such with the specific connotation of God being an accidental outcome?
Basically, in the exact same way that Nietzsche means metaphysics are useless, that is what divine taste is saying. It's saying, fuck all of the rest of it. It's all garbage. You don't need it. All you need is the one which gives you power, the one which makes you better. That's all you need. And basically, from the statement that all you need is power, all you need ever is to strive to be better, God emerges entirely out of that concept. Is basically what this is positing.
So divine. So is it that the striving towards perfection, as you have that notion of perfection in your head, it is the divine taste? Like, what does those
Yes,
two words
yes.
specifically
That
label?
notion, that notion of perfection is the divine taste. The notion of yes, that's the perfect way of putting it. The notion of perfection is the divine taste, and
Mhm.
God emerges out of that notion of perfection. When you basically when you understand perfection, that is God. But God doesn't exist independently of striving for perfection. God is just what emerges when you strive for perfection.
Hold on a
God
second.
is perfection itself, the ideal of perfection. Hmm.
All those hours on legacy calls probably like prepared us for the ability to just call for hours on end, just writing, talking about ideas, breaking them down, deconstructing them to their smallest little atoms.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was definitely I mean, it's just that like artistic notion. This is another thing I was thinking about whenever I asked the question of like, why does sci-fi lead to religion? And another answer is because right here, what we're talking about, the divine taste. Well, what you're reaching for when you're writing the perfect book, or for us, when we're creating legacy, what you're reaching for is God. You're reaching for perfection. You're reaching for totality. And it's like, it's really no wonder that religion emerges out of artistic creativity. They're the same thing.
Yeah. We are trying to replicate what we feel into the world by creating a symbol of it as art.
Yeah.
And that is just a very, very small fragment of it in itself.
One avenue of
Amazing
that
where
mania that is perfection.
yeah. Well, what we create is the shadow of what is truly there.
I mean, yes, that's definitely true. And yeah, that is what it hints at. This concept of um divine taste as like a framework god is yeah, I mean it's basically what Plato was saying, where there's like the divine forms or whatever he calls them. What does he call them? The
Will
form.
the forms.
It isn't. It's not will the forms. It's some
Yeah, it's not.
other.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah,
World
yeah.
of
It
forms.
is. World of forms. Is that what he calls it? Yeah, his world of
Yeah.
forms is literally just his ideal of perfection. That where everything is perfect. It's the perfect version of everything we can possibly think of. That's literally how he explained it. I always thought this concept was so stupid, and now I finally understand it. Um, I was always like, what the fuck are you talking about? That there's some metaphysical perfect tree somewhere. It's like, what does that fucking mean? That's such stupid
Yeah,
shit.
that's a crazy one, but
It makes
it's
perfect sense now.
yeah. I'm like, oh, now I wonder what that cosmic tree looks like. I bet it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's just they're all God. That world of perfect
Mhm.
forms is just God
Yeah.
itself. Um, yeah. Man, either he did a really shit job of explaining that, or you know what it probably is. It's just that they did a shit job of translating it. That seems to be a repeated issue here. Um,
Yeah, I imagine like in the book, there's the book Timadius. Have you read that or heard about it? Because I think that's when he gets up
I've
in the
read,
nitty gritty.
I did Parmenides and another one, but no, I've not read. What did you call it? It sounds awesome. The name's just cool.
Tim, Timides, Timid, Timus.
Timus. That's a cool name.
Um, yeah, and it's supposed to be like his cosmology, just how the universe is
First
structured,
time
how
you
it
called it
came to
like
be.
Timenides or something. That was a cool ass name.
Yeah. Um.
But Parmenides is one of the ones I read. But
Yeah.
yeah, I may have already said that. Parmenides and Symposium. Those were the two I read. They were both good.
Yeah. And besides, a lot of like from like there's huge difference from the YouTuber explaining what Plato meant by the world of forms and what he actually meant.
Yeah, but yeah.
Oh,
Speaking.
speaking of, Uber Boyle just made a video. I watched a few minutes of it. It was pretty detailed. Um, it has really great art of Plato's uh
What
cave
really?
um
Oh,
analogy.
cool.
Um,
Wait, and what? Let's say.
and
Let's see. Let's see if I now have figured out Plato's cave from my last sub one experience. What does it mean? What is the whole thing again? Use shadows on
oh
the
well,
cave wall, and that we
it
mistake
is
those
very
for infinity. It's simulacrum. He's talking about simulacrum, isn't he?
um.
The
So
shadows
the
on the
idea is
cave
that you
wall. That's reality. That's simulacrum. That's what he's saying, right?
that is the reality that we see in front of us that we
Yeah.
mistake as the real
It,
eternal
it's
reality,
it's simulacrum.
which is only
Simulacrum.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
It's
but yeah,
literally just his
it is
simulacrum.
yeah, it is the projection that we're watching, which is only casted by a flame and made by actors who are putting stuff and making it look like there's stuff there. It's fake shadows. And then the guy escapes his shackles, which he was kept captive in this cave, and he escapes the cave. He goes out of the cave and then he sees the sun, he sees the world, and that is the true world in that analogy. That's God.
And doesn't he go back into the cave?
I don't know. I don't know the full story. I just know that what it means. He
I think
does.
he
I don't
does.
know.
I think he does go back into
Perhaps,
the cave afterward, and I think he's calling like people bitches with that one.
yeah, it's like yeah, he probably does just go back in there, and be like, hey guys, the shadow's not real. Lameo.
No, no, no. I mean like he goes back in because he can't handle reality. I think it was Plato dissing people. I think it was Plato calling everyone else a bitch
Oh,
for being like you can't even stand in the face of God.
yeah.
Um, at least that's what I've heard, and I heard that from like one person like a year ago. So who knows if that's actually true or not? But anyway,
Well, regardless, the real story means the same thing. I don't know what the man does in relation to it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
we what we say
that is
is
funny.
we should say yes.
What the man does in relation to it. That's such a classic like issue we had of like, yeah, well, there's the end, and
Yeah.
you can change the end to mean whatever you want. Who cares about that? The point is the middle. uh,
Yeah.
but but yeah, yeah, that is very funny. We literally did the same fucking thing Plato was doing. Exactly. Um, Plato's just like us for real, except fucking 5,000 years ago. But
Mhm.
Uh, so here's an idea. I'm interested to see where this one goes. Will to divine taste versus an ego is to taste. Will to divine taste
Now
versus an
that's
ego.
definitely an Ashton thing to do, is to fuse some of those phrases together.
You betcha. You bet your ass it is. Let's see where it goes. Just
What
fucking
do you
throwing
think?
things together is like the perfect way to make new grammar. I put it in chat.
So one has, so is the principle that one has the intrinsic drive to find perfection. Is there still a hold on, is there still a difference between will to divine taste and will to taste, or are you saying scrap that as well?
Let's think about all of those
Like
things.
will to
Everything
taste to me
everything is on
implies,
the table. I haven't considered this idea yet. So anything you
yes.
come up
So
with is on the table.
when I hear will to taste, it's implied that there is humanity that's trying to find God, and that looks like whatever humanity does, whether it's good or bad, whatever. That is the will to taste. They're trying to do that, but the divine taste is the actual perfection that you're striving for. That's actually there in your head, and you know how to do that. Everyone has that drive to find their divine taste, to find perfection, and to fully find God, but not everyone does that. But it's still there in a person, and and in certain individuals, it is released.
Where everything you just said is true. However, my criticism of that would be that everything you just said is also true within only will to taste, I think. I don't think you said anything which isn't included within regular
So
will
I
to
guess
taste.
then, what does will to divine taste like mean? Because like, does someone have a will to the perfection taste, and does that mean anything different? Like,
Let me
then
let
if
me
what I'm saying is will to taste, and I tried to define will to divine taste, so it should just be the one thing, and it's not. There's no longer a separation.
yeah,
They're now
hold on.
fused.
Hold on.
I had just put in my earbuds, and in doing so, the earbuds picked up the noise of what it was like to be placed in my ear, and I heard that noise amplified uh through my ear, even though it was my ear. And I got this idea that, like, hey, that's kind of like God in reality, where God is the ear which hears, and there's earbud, the man who does something within God, which makes noise that the man hears, and because the man can hear it, so can God. Or because the earbud makes noise, so can the ear, because the earbud is in the ear, participating in the ear. Any of that makes sense?
Yeah, it's essentially like something else I was thinking about, which is like the sense organ. It's like we are the sense organs of God. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but so here's some things I was thinking about. Will to divine taste for so the divine taste is just the ideal will to taste. So there's something interesting. Uh,
Yeah, that's what I think that makes sense. Because it's like the will to taste, but you're looking for the divine taste.
yeah, and so here's one reason why they just can't be like shoved together is because the divine taste is only when the will to taste is striving for God, basically. Um, something which we label as God. Of course, not quite God. It's something that isn't quite God. It's beyond that. It's pure perfection. But anyways, whenever something is going after that, whereas the will to taste, that is even like that is the teacher. So in other words, here's what I'd say: the teacher screaming at her student, that is will to taste. And will to taste is trying to get to the divine taste. But that first grade teacher screaming at her student, that isn't the divine taste. So what? Well, let me think about that. Can that tie into what you were talking about earlier? That's a word for.
Is there a differentiation between touchdown and score, or are you just saying the concept?
Concept.
Hmm. I would say it's the mathematically perfect thing to do.
I definitely agree with that. I just wonder, can it be? I don't know the types of speech. I don't know verbs and nouns and such forth. But I'm basically asking, can it be the other one? Because it can definitely mean what you should do, but can it mean when you do what you should do?
Wait, say that again?
It definitely means what you should do, but can it mean when you do what you should do?
Okay, could you give an example of that?
So for instance, it definitely means that whenever I am trying to taste my strawberry ice cream, um, that whenever I think about an egoist taste and I'm then eating and consuming the thought textures directly, that I am striving for the divine taste. Because whenever I'm doing that, I am trying to metaphysically understand and taste it as good as humanly possible and taste it for God and be the best tasting thing and reach for God when eating that ice cream. So, is. God damn it. Hold on. I need to think about it a little more. Divine tasting. Is that actually a thing? I guess is the question I'm asking.
All right, I'm a bit confused. What is the conflict exactly with the eating of the ice cream?
No conflict. Just divine tasting. As in, can it be said, just linguistically, I'm trying to figure out if it's correct to say that I divine tasted the ice cream. Like, does that work? Like, in other words, can you say that someone divine tasted something? Like, can you use
Are
a
you,
different
are,
type
are
of
you
speech?
asking me grammatically, or are you saying within your metaphysical?
Both. I'm trying to figure out for myself.
Because if you wanted that, you would say, "I divinely tasted it," or you'd say, "I divine tasted it," but you'd probably want to have like
No,
a dash in the middle of it, which connotates it being the same thing.
that's not what I mean. Yeah, you were right, more right with the metaphysical one. I'm trying to figure out metaphysical grammatically. I'm trying to figure out if there's any time that someone can not do good, let's say, not score, but yet that is reaching for the divine taste. This is another thing I'm trying to think of.
So what? So what would be an example of you not scoring but divine tasting? I guess.
That's what I'm
What does
trying.
that mean?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. And if that means nothing and doesn't exist, then that means something. I just gotta figure all
Yeah,
that.
but if it means nothing, then it just means that we're talking now about the will to taste, which means whether it's a touchdown or not.
Hold on. Okay. I don't care about this anymore. That is going to lead to nothing important. Um, let's skip to the other things I was thinking about. The divine taste. No. Is exasic 6 included in will to divine taste?
Hold on. I just a concept that might help the previous concept. What do you think about these two simple